After the boss's party, she never came home, and in the morning she faced a surprise that destroyed everything. It started with something simple. The click of the front door as I opened it that morning felt heavier than usual, like the hinges themselves were reluctant. I stepped outside with my coffee in hand, still half asleep, expecting nothing more than the chill of early spring and maybe the neighbor's dog barking like it always did. Instead, my eyes locked onto something that didn't belong. A suitcase. Emily's suitcase. It was just sitting there on the porch, upright like someone had wheeled it out of an Uber and abandoned it without bothering to knock. It still had the baggage claim tag from O'Hare hanging off the handle, even though she hadn't mentioned any flights. There were scuff marks on the corners and a faint smear of dirt along the zipper. Details I probably wouldn't have noticed if I weren't so stunned. Emily didn't just leave things lying around, let alone her suitcase. She was meticulous to the point of compulsion. Everything in its place. But this wasn't in its place. Next to the suitcase was something even stranger. A tie. A man's tie, rolled loosely into a tangled coil like it had been yanked off in a hurry. I stared at it for a long time. It was navy blue with thin silver stripes and a faint perfume clinging to the fabric. Not cologne, perfume. The scent was light, almost floral, and it hit me as entirely out of place for something that was clearly not mine. I've never owned a tie like that. I don't even wear suits to work anymore. The last time I put one on was for a wedding almost 2 years ago, and it definitely wasn't that one. I reached down and picked it up, instinctively brushing off a smudge of what looked like foundation from the back of the collar. A lipstick stain curved faintly near the knot, and something in my chest started to coil inwards. That's when the door behind me opened again. Emily. She stepped outside barefoot, her heels clicking faintly against the hardwood floor before reaching the colder tile of the threshold. She didn't look like herself. Her hair, normally straightened and tucked neatly behind her ears, was frizzy and tangled. Her makeup was smudged beneath her eyes, not in the elegant smoky eye kind of way, but in the cried too long or slept in your mascara kind of way. Her dress, the one she wore to her corporate party the night before, was wrinkled, like she'd slept in it or maybe never took it off, and over her shoulders was a men's blazer. Gray wool, too big for her frame, sleeves falling past her wrists. Definitely not mine. She hugged it tighter around herself as she stepped outside, maybe out of instinct, maybe from the cold. Or maybe she already knew I'd be standing there, looking at the suitcase, looking at the tie. She didn't say anything right away. For a few seconds, we just stood there in silence. Her gaze flicked to the suitcase, then to the tie in my hand, then back up to my face. And in that split second, I could see it. The way her lips parted, the slight hitch in her breath, her body tensing like she was about to give an explanation but couldn't quite figure out which one to go with. I spoke first, or tried to. I managed, but my voice cracked somewhere between her name and the disbelief. I wanted to ask her where she'd been, why she hadn't come home last night, what this tie was doing here, why she looked like she had slept in someone else's arms. She waved a hand dismissively and walked past me like the whole scene was nothing more than a weird coincidence. Like the suitcase, the blazer, and the tie didn't matter. She didn't even make eye contact. "I need water," she mumbled, already heading toward the kitchen. I watched her go. My eyes dropped instinctively to the back of her neck, and that's when I saw it. A red mark. Small, round, unmistakable. It wasn't a rash. Not a scratch. It was the kind of mark you get from someone's lips. A kiss. And not one meant for public display. I've known Emily long enough to recognize when she's trying to hide something. She pulled her hair to the side as she passed me, letting it fall like a curtain over the mark. But not before I saw it. Not before that image seared itself into my memory. She didn't look back. She went straight to the sink, filled a glass with water, and chugged it like she hadn't had a drink in hours. The blazer still hung over her shoulders like a borrowed skin she didn't want to shed. I stepped inside slowly, still holding the tie. My hand felt numb. "Where were you?" I asked finally, more to break the silence than because I thought I'd get a straight answer. She set the glass down. "I told you I was going to the after party. You didn't come home." She shrugged. It ran late. I crashed on Carly's couch. Carly, the default alibi. The coworker whose name had started coming up more and more lately. The same one whose social media I'd checked occasionally. Harmless curiosity, or so I told myself, just to see if she posted anything that matched up with Emily's stories. But Carly hadn't posted anything about a party last night. Nothing at all. I didn't call her out on it. Not yet. Instead, I held up the tie. Yours? I asked, trying to keep my tone light, sarcastic, like I was joking. Emily froze for half a second. Half a second too long. No, she said quickly. Someone must have left it in the cab. She avoided my eyes when she said it. Reached for the coffee pot, even though she always hated drinking coffee without oat milk, which we didn't have anymore. You said you crashed on Carly's couch, I pointed out. She blinked, like she was trying to rewind and rewrite the last 30 seconds. Yeah, I did. I took a cab from the venue to her place. I guess the tie was in the cab? I don't know. Her voice was too calm, her answers too fast. It felt rehearsed, like a script she had practiced in her head, only to forget which version she was supposed to stick to. That's when I realized. She hadn't expected to come home to me this early. She hadn't expected to get caught off guard. But this wasn't just about the tie. It wasn't even about the blazer. It was the way she looked. Like she'd lived an entirely different life between last night and this morning. The dress was wrinkled. Not like she'd sat in it all night, but like she'd slept in it. Her perfume had faded, replaced by something unfamiliar, sandalwood, maybe. Muskier, not hers. And that red mark. I didn't say anything else. I didn't ask any more questions. I just stood there with the tie still in my hand, the morning light spilling through the window, and a sinking feeling growing in my gut. Because deep down I already knew. No amount of explanations or forced smiles could explain away what I was seeing. She could throw out excuses all day, about cabs, coworkers, late nights, but the truth had already made itself known. It was lying at my feet on the porch. It was wrapped around her shoulders. It was marked on her neck. And it was written all over her silence. After that morning, things didn't go back to normal. Emily acted like they did. Like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't found her suitcase out front. Hadn't seen the tie. Hadn't stared directly at the red mark on her neck while she poured herself a glass of water in someone else's blazer. But once something cracks, it doesn't uncrack. You can try to glue it back together, but it's never the same. It doesn't hold the same weight, and eventually you stop pretending it will. That night, as she showered and climbed into bed beside me like everything was fine, I just lay there, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Once, twice, 3 times. She didn't check it. She just turned it over, face down, screen against the table. That used to be something I wouldn't have noticed. Now I couldn't stop noticing it. I remember when we first got together, there were no secrets. Her phone would be lying around unlocked while she cooked, while she showered, even while she slept. I could have gone through it any time, but I never felt the need. I trusted her. It's strange how fast trust turns into doubt, and how easily doubt becomes obsession. That next morning, while she was getting ready for work, I stood in the doorway and watched her. She hummed to herself, off-key, a little too cheerful. The kind of fake happy people put on when they're trying to prove something. She took longer than usual doing her makeup. Bright lipstick, extra blush. New earrings I didn't recognize. You're dressed up, I said casually. She looked at me in the mirror. We've got a client meeting this morning. A beat passed. Who with? I asked. She hesitated just for a second. Daniel. And some of the execs. Daniel. I'd heard the name a few times. Always in passing. I think he was new to her team. Clean cut. The kind of guy who always looked like he was either on his way to a conference or a first date. You like working with him? I asked, trying to sound casual. She turned to me, eyebrows raised. What is this, an interrogation? I shrugged. Just making conversation. She didn't answer, just grabbed her purse and left without another word. That day I started connecting the dots. The late nights at the office. The weekends where she suddenly had team bonding events. The way her phone had gone from a forgotten accessory to an extension of her hand. Always face down, always locked, always with her. Even when she went to the bathroom. Even when she showered. She had changed her passcode recently. I only noticed because one night while we were watching TV, I leaned over and saw her entering it. It wasn't the same one she used to use, the one we picked together as a joke, based on our anniversary. Now it was something else. Something I wasn't supposed to know. And it wasn't just her phone. It was the little things. New perfume. Spicier than what she used to wear. A scent I didn't like. Probably because it wasn't meant for me. Her wardrobe had shifted, too. Tighter dresses, higher heels, riskier choices. Not that I minded the change, not at first. But paired with everything else, it felt curated, like she was putting on a show for someone. Someone who wasn't her husband. She laughed more often now, but not with me. I'd walk into a room and find her smiling at her phone, then quickly locking the screen and tucking it away like it was nothing. I'd ask what was so funny, and she'd say, just a meme Carly sent, or some dumb office joke. Always vague, always just enough to sound normal. And then there were the nights she came home looking different. Different makeup, different lipstick, earrings swapped out from the ones she wore that morning. Her hair curled even though she left it straight. And sometimes the scent on her clothes wasn't perfume. It was cologne, the kind that lingers. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. I really did. I told myself maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was reading into things. Maybe this was stress, or some personal crisis she hadn't opened up about. But when you've been with someone long enough, you know when their patterns change. You can feel it, like a shift in the room's temperature. Like you're suddenly sleeping next to a stranger who knows all your secrets but won't share any of theirs. One night I asked her directly, "Is there something going on you're not telling me?" She paused mid-bite, fork hovering over her salad. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. You've been acting different. Distant." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's rich coming from you. You've been moody as hell lately." "That's because I feel like something's off." She stared at me for a long second, then set her fork down. "So what are you saying, James? That I'm cheating on you?" The way she said it, so direct, so accusatory, threw me off, like she was daring me to say it out loud, like she wanted to shut down the conversation before it could go anywhere. "I didn't say that," I replied, "but something's going on, and you're not talking to me about it." She stood up from the table, grabbing her plate. "You're being paranoid." And just like that, the conversation ended. But my paranoia didn't, because that night, while she was asleep, I got up and opened the laundry hamper. I know how that sounds. I hate that I did it. I hate what I've become. But I needed something. Some proof that I wasn't just going crazy. And I found it. A receipt. Folded and shoved into the pocket of her jeans. It was for a bottle of wine. 2 glasses. A shared appetizer. Dated 3 nights ago. She told me she was working late that night. I turned the receipt over. The name of the place was a restaurant I'd never been to. Fancy one. One you don't go to for a solo meal or a quick business dinner. You go there to impress someone, to celebrate, or to be seen. But she hadn't told me about it. She hadn't said anything. I sat on the edge of the bed for hours that night, just holding the receipt, staring at it like it might come alive and whisper the truth. Eventually, I put it in my desk drawer, next to the tie, next to the mental folder I was building piece by piece. Every inconsistency, every unanswered question, every gut feeling I'd brushed aside for the sake of peace. By the end of that week, I stopped trying to believe the best in her. I stopped giving her the benefit of the doubt, because deep down I knew there was a truth just beneath the surface, and it was trying to claw its way out. And I was finally ready to see it. It wasn't a question anymore. It was a hunt. Once I allowed myself to accept what I already knew, the blindfold came off. Things that once passed as coincidences suddenly looked more like cover stories. The timing, the slip-ups, the defensiveness, all of it. The woman I married was still there in front of me. Same voice, same laugh, but the trust between us had died a quiet death. Now I was searching the ruins, trying to understand what really happened while I wasn't paying attention. The first real piece of evidence came not from some elaborate plan or spyware or anything like that. Came from the damn couch. I was vacuuming between the cushions, something I only did when I couldn't stand the feeling of sitting in a mess. And there it was, a folded receipt. Crisp, barely creased, like someone had tucked it away in a hurry. It was from a country club outside of Milwaukee. Not local. Not somewhere you'd stumble into after work. And not a place she had any reason to be. The line items were simple: dinner for two, wine pairing, and the date, the same night as her corporate party. I just sat there staring at it, the vacuum cleaner still humming next to me, my fingers tightening around the receipt like it might disappear. I hadn't seen her that night. She told me she was staying in the city with Carly and the girls after the company's big annual event. Said they'd be too tipsy to Uber home. But the address on the receipt wasn't in the city. It was an hour north, in a woodsy, high-end part of the state that screamed romantic getaway, more than girls' night out. That was the moment I knew, not suspected, that she hadn't just been hiding something. She'd been lying. Intentionally. Precisely. With confidence. And suddenly, I couldn't stop seeing the lies. That weekend, while she was in the shower, I did something I never imagined myself doing. I unlocked her phone using Face ID. She changed the passcode weeks ago. That alone should have been a red flag. We used to know each other's passwords like we knew our birthdays. But she got sneakier over time. She guarded that phone like it held state secrets. And in a way, it did. As soon as it opened, my stomach turned. I didn't know what I expected to find, but part of me still hoped I'd be wrong. That maybe I'd find harmless texts with Carly, work messages, Instagram reels and Pinterest boards. Something, anything that told me I was overthinking this. But instead I saw Daniel, her coworker. His name was everywhere. Pinned messages, archived chats, deleted texts still showing in search previews. And most telling of all, photos. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the threads. They didn't talk like coworkers. They didn't even talk like friends. It was all inside jokes and suggestive comments. Thinly veiled flirtation mixed with late-night confessions. You looked amazing tonight. Wish I could have kept you a little longer. That meeting was torture. All I wanted was to sneak away with you. Still thinking about the way you smiled when you saw me at the table. She replied with heart emojis. Laughter. Teasing. The same tone she used with me years ago. Back when everything was fresh and real. But this wasn't real. This was betrayal dressed up like something romantic. I backed out of the messages, breathing hard, and opened her photo gallery. That's when I saw the pictures. Not of them together, no selfies, no kissing **TS. She wasn't that careless. But there were patterns. Restaurant tables set for two. Dimly lit wine glasses. Candles. Cloth napkins folded neatly beside half-eaten plates. Her reflection in windows. Hotel room mirrors. And then one image froze me completely. A blurry **T of her legs crossed on a hotel bed. Same wrinkled dress. Same night as the party. Her heels lay on the floor beside a man's polished black shoes. I stared at it for what felt like a full minute. I didn't cry. I didn't throw her phone. I didn't scream or punch a wall like they do in movies. I just shut down, quietly, like something vital inside me had powered off. I backed out of the photo app, wiped the screen clean of smudges, and locked the phone. I returned it exactly where I found it, on the charger, face down, screen dim. She never suspected a thing. Later that night, she came downstairs in sweatpants and an old college hoodie, carrying a bowl of popcorn like nothing was wrong. She dropped onto the couch beside me, nudging my leg with her foot. "Want to start something on Netflix?" she asked. I looked at her. I looked through her. And for the first time in months, I realized how much effort she had been putting into this lie. How natural she had become at maintaining the illusion. She wasn't some terrified cheater full of guilt. She was practiced. She was steady. This wasn't some messy, impulsive lapse in judgment. This was a second life. I pretended to nod. Sure, whatever. She smiled and leaned against me. My body didn't move. I just let her rest there, knowing full well what I'd seen hours earlier. That night, while she slept, I started organizing everything. I created a folder on my laptop, labeled it something innocuous, home projects, in case she ever glanced over my shoulder. Inside it, I stored **TS of the messages, copies of the photos, scans of the receipt. I even saved her Find My iPhone location history, an app she forgot I had access to. That's how I confirmed the country club's coordinates, and the lakeside inn she visited 2 weekends ago when she told me she was at a women's retreat. Funny, I never thought I'd be the kind of man to become a digital detective. But here I was, finding breadcrumbs, following them, and laying traps of my own. She had built a web of deceit, layered and quiet, with enough charm to keep me off the scent for months. But now I was awake, and every smile, every kiss, every "I love you" since that night felt like a carefully delivered line from a well-rehearsed play. I didn't confront her. Not yet. What good would it do? I needed more. Not just to hurt her back or make a scene, but because I needed the truth laid bare. No ambiguity, no more room for doubt. If I was going to lose the woman I married, I wanted to know exactly who I'd been living with this whole time. I started keeping a notebook in my desk drawer. Physical, private, not digital. Each page held a date, a lie, contradiction. A time she came home late and smelled like sandalwood instead of her usual citrus perfume. A lipstick shade that didn't match the one she wore that morning. A pair of earrings I found under the seat of her car, cheap, glittery studs I'd never seen before. Definitely not her style. By the end of the week, I had 10 pages filled. 10 pages of proof that I wasn't crazy. 10 pages of a marriage unraveling. And still, she kissed me goodbye each morning. She called me babe. She sent heart emojis after work. It was all a performance. But the difference now was I finally saw the script. And I was done pretending not to know the ending. After a while, even the lies started to feel rehearsed. She'd gotten so good at delivering them. I started wondering if she even knew what the truth sounded like anymore. And maybe I didn't either. But facts don't lie. Patterns don't lie. And by then, I had more than enough of both to see what had been hiding in plain sight all along. She wasn't just cheating. She was living 2 lives. And the one I was part of, the marriage, the home, the routines, that was the background noise. She had an entire structure running in parallel. Not a one-time mistake. Not a drunken night she regretted. This was built, sustained, maintained. Carefully, methodically. With the kind of thoughtfulness you're supposed to give to a relationship. She just gave it to someone else. I remember the night it all became undeniable. She was packing for a wellness retreat. Some weekend getaway with coworkers to reset and recharge, she said. Sounded harmless enough on paper. She even had a brochure printed out. It looked official. Even had an itinerary. Yoga, spa time, group dinners. Except the address on the brochure was fake. I checked. The lodge it listed didn't exist. At least not where she said it was. The website was 1 page, no booking info, no contact. Just a logo and a tagline. Looked legit at first glance, but it wasn't. I traced the image on the site. It was a stock photo, used by dozens of health blogs and travel companies. When I confronted her, casually, almost playfully, I said, "This place looks amazing. Do they have any open weekends for couples?" She blinked, hesitated, then said, "Oh, they're booked through the summer. It's a really exclusive place." She didn't even ask why I looked it up, because she knew I had no reason to. Until now. After she left that Friday, suitcase packed with what she claimed were comfy clothes and retreat essentials. I waited 15 minutes, then opened the drawer where she usually kept her toiletries. Sure enough, gone. But not just her face wash or her moisturizer. Gone were the lace sets I'd never seen her wear at home. Lipsticks I didn't know she owned. Perfume I never smelled on her skin. The overnight bag in the back of her closet was missing too. She hadn't packed for relaxation. She'd packed for seduction. I opened her laptop, checking her email again. Still logged in. Nothing suspicious on the surface, No messages from Daniel, no obvious signs of planning. But in the trash folder, I found a forwarded confirmation from a hotel reservation service. Not a spa retreat. A lodge. A lakeside in 2 hours north, not far from that same country club on the receipt I found earlier. The booking was for two, under a fake name. But the email trail? That was all hers. She had erased it, but not well enough. She thought I wouldn't notice the gaps. She thought I'd keep trusting her while she carried on in shadows. But I was past that. I used her Apple ID to access her location history. Not just real-time, historical. A quiet little setting that tracks your significant locations. People rarely even realize it's on. But it had logged every place she'd been in the last 2 months. The lakefront inn showed up 3 times. Always on weekends when she told me she was visiting her sister. Always for overnight stays. I stared at the red pins on the map, clustered in that little patch of woods by the water. Her pattern was meticulous, 1 night per visit, always preceded by a few days of emotional withdrawal at home, followed by an overly affectionate return. She'd come back like nothing happened. Ask how my weekend was. Bring home pastries from some local bakery to cover the scent of someone else on her. I knew now what those pastries really were. Guilt offerings. I started checking her trash more often. Her purse. Her coat pockets. I wasn't proud of it. But pride has no place when you're being lied to daily. That's how I found the lingerie tag. Buried deep in the side pocket of her suitcase when she got back. Still crumpled, like she ripped it off in a hurry. It was from a boutique I'd never heard of. I looked it up. They didn't even have a storefront. Just a showroom by appointment. And on her credit card statement, 2 weeks prior, $312. 14. Lingerie. Private purchase. She never wore it for me. In fact, we hadn't been in * made in. Weeks? A month? I couldn't even remember. Every time I reached for her, she was tired, or had cramps, or just didn't feel like it. And I'd believed her. I let her roll away with a kiss on the shoulder and some half-hearted promise of maybe tomorrow. But tomorrow never came. And now I knew why. She wasn't bored. She wasn't distant. She was already fulfilled. Just not by me. After I found the lingerie tag, I went into full preparation mode. Not panic. Not rage. Just cold calculation. I backed up everything. Every receipt. Every location ping. Every deleted email and photo I could find. I organized it all into folders. Photos. Messages. Timeline. Financial. She had constructed a secret world. So I built a map of it. One night, while she slept, I copied the entire contents of her phone onto an external drive. Then wiped the record of the backup. She would never know. But I would always have it. That was when I realized something else. She wasn't just cheating. She was investing. Emotionally. Logistically. Financially. This wasn't some careless affair. It was structured. Her work calendar had entries labeled internal sync. On days, she disappeared for hours. But those meetings didn't exist. Her company's portal had no record of them. I created a second timeline, a dual overlay. Her lies versus her movements. The discrepancies were glaring. For every staff meeting or Carly lunch, there was a matching entry in her GPS logs showing she was in a parking garage outside a restaurant or 30 miles in the opposite direction of her office. Once, she claimed to be at a business seminar downtown. Her car's GPS logged for 4 hours at a botanical garden just off the interstate. For hours. No seminar. No photos. No posts. Just silence. And her engine off. By now, I wasn't even angry. I was past that. Past heartbreak. Past jealousy. Past every stage of grief. All that was left in me was clarity. What she had was a second relationship. One with routine. With places. With clothing I never saw. A voice I never heard. A version of her that was warm. Excited. Alive. A version that came home to me empty. Exhausted. And dull. She'd left breadcrumbs everywhere. I was just finally picking them up. And they didn't lead to my marriage. They led to her other life. There's something different about seeing it for yourself. **ts, location data, receipts, deleted texts. All of that paints the picture, sure, but it's still abstract. You can lie to yourself when it's all digital. Call it circumstantial, misunderstood. Twist the narrative to fit the person you thought they were. But when you see it, when it's there, in front of you, living and breathing and touching, that's when the truth becomes undeniable. It was a Saturday. She said she had a networking brunch in the city, some vague gathering of coworkers at a rooftop restaurant, followed by errands and maybe a spa appointment, if there's time. I didn't question it. Not to her face. I nodded like always, kissed her forehead like always, and watched her drive off in the same car she'd been using to meet him for weeks. I waited exactly 10 minutes. Then I left. This wasn't a gut feeling anymore, it was logistics. Her lies had rhythms, patterns. I had studied them long enough to predict where she'd be. I took my car, but parked several blocks away from where the GPS last showed she'd spent one of her retreat weekends. A remote road off the highway, surrounded by woods, with just one gravel path leading into a row of cabins by the lake. Private, quiet, romantic. I left my phone in the car and walked the trail slowly, my shoes crunching against the leaves. The morning sun filtered through the trees, but the chill in the air had teeth. It didn't matter. I wasn't there to be comfortable. As I got closer to the cabins, I moved behind a line of trees that ran parallel to the dirt road. I knew which one was theirs. I'd memorized the satellite images. The cabin at the end, dark wood siding, wraparound porch, wide lake-facing windows. Cabin number 7. From the shadows, I could see the curtains drawn back. Not wide open, but not enough to block the view either. Inside, the fireplace glowed faintly, and 2 wine glasses sat on the coffee table. One half full, one empty. They were there. Emily sat on the couch, curled up in a throw blanket I didn't recognize. Her hair was pulled up, and she looked soft, relaxed, happy. Not in a fake way. Not the forced smiles she gave me over dinner. This was different. And across from her, slouched comfortably in the armchair, was Daniel. I recognized him immediately. I'd only ever seen photos online, glimpses in her work emails or company newsletters. But it was him. Same confident posture, same self-assured grin, same guy I used to tell her she talked about a little too often. She never admitted he was anything more than a teammate. But here he was, wearing a sweater I'd never seen before, socks on the coffee table, one hand loosely holding a glass of wine while the other reached for hers. She laughed at something he said. Not a polite giggle. A full laugh. The kind I hadn't heard from her in months. She leaned forward, elbow on her knee, lips parted as she spoke animatedly about something. I couldn't hear the words. I didn't need to. And then she did it. She reached across the table and touched his knee. Just casually, gently, but long enough to mean something. He set his glass down and leaned toward her. There was no hesitation, no flinching, just the easy rhythm of people who were used to being close. He kissed her, slowly, familiar, like this wasn't the first time or even the 10th. Her hand slid to the back of his neck. His fingers curled into her sweater. It wasn't desperate, it was routine. They didn't check the window, didn't look around, didn't worry about being seen. Because as far as they were concerned, the rest of the world didn't exist. I don't remember exactly how long I stood there. Time didn't feel real. My heart didn't race. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry at first. It was more like watching a stranger live a life I was never invited to be part of. And yet, that was my wife. My house keys in her purse. My last name on her ID. My toothbrush next to hers at home. My birthday marked in her calendar. But in that moment, I didn't recognize her. She wasn't just cheating. She was living. Living in a version of herself she had never brought home. With him, she smiled differently, spoke differently, moved differently. She was animated, playful, alive. Not the woman who came home drained, irritated, worn down by whatever fictional stress she blamed for her distance. No, that version of her was reserved for me. And this version, The one who laughed at his dumb jokes and curled into his side on a lakeside couch. That was her real self now. The sun had risen higher by the time I turned to leave. I didn't need to see more. I had what I came for. I walked back the way I came, slow and steady, not bothering to hide the sound of my footsteps anymore. If they heard, they didn't check. Back in my car, I sat in silence. I didn't start the engine right away, just stared at the windshield and tried to process what I'd seen. It was real now, not just a theory or a gut feeling or digital proof. I had seen her kiss him, smile for him, pour wine and laugh and touch and lean into a life that had no place for me. And still, she would come home that evening. She'd walk through the door, drop her bag, kiss me on the cheek, and ask if I wanted to order takeout. She'd act tired. She'd tell me the brunch ran long. Maybe she'd mention a facial. Maybe she'd fall asleep early on the couch again, curled under a blanket she claimed to have bought for her office. And I would know the truth. Every second of her performance would unfold in front of me like a rerun I'd already seen. But this time, I wouldn't be part of the lie. That night, I didn't wait up for her. She came home a little after 10. I heard her keys hit the hook, her shoes drop by the door. The bathroom light flicked on, then off. The water ran. She moved through the house like a ghost in a well-practiced routine. I stayed in the guest room. She didn't ask why. Maybe part of her already knew that the curtain was about to fall. I compiled everything: photos, receipts, message logs, location history. I stored it all in a folder, labeled simply, Truth. I packed her forgotten belongings into a box, placed it beside the evidence on the table. No confrontation, no yelling, just silence. Let the facts speak. She would come home to a quiet room, a closed door, and the weight of what she'd tried so hard to hide laid bare in plain sight. She tried to deny it, then justify it, then cry. None of it mattered. I filed for divorce that week. While packing, I found old letters. Daniel wasn't the first, just the latest. Years of deception, masked by routine. I cleared the house of her things, one memory at a time. The silence left behind wasn't painful. It was peaceful. What once felt like betrayal now felt like freedom.